Of course, we want to let you know about our upcoming publication. This is going to be CCA's latest impact data implementation guide for adopting and, most importantly, scaling the Corequisite model. You are some of the first to know about this. It's going to be launching in just a couple of weeks. We're going to be sharing a link with a teaser to that in the chat. So you want to be on the lookout for CCA's latest signature publication on Corequisite. And the key takeaways, we'll give you a little bit of information ahead of time. What was once an idea has now been proven, and now it's time to scale fully Corequisite support. Why? We know that it works. As you're going to hear today, the data is overwhelming for how Corequisite makes a difference with student success outcomes. It's absolutely an equity-focused strategy, and you're going to hear today about how Corequisite as a strategy has been effectively able to eliminate institutional performance gaps. We also are able to show it's a financial win-win both for students as well as for institutions who adopt it. And as we said, Corequisite needs to be the norm at colleges and universities across the country. So those are some of the takeaways. Again, if you sign up with a profile on completecollege.org, you'll be able to download it once we release it in the near future. And so the moment you've all been waiting for, my name is Dr. Brandon Protas. I'm a strategy director here at Complete College America. And it is my distinct pleasure to be able to introduce Dr. Tristan Denley, who's going to be leading today's session. Quick intro for him. Dr. Tristan Denley currently serves as the Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Chief Academic Officer at the University System of Georgia. Before moving to Georgia, he served as Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at the Tennessee Board of Regents and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Austin Peay State University. Throughout his career, he has taken a hands-on approach in a variety of initiatives impacting student success and has been recognized nationally many times over. His work includes the rethinking of the teaching of freshman mathematics classes, and the creation of a degree compass, a course recommendation system that successfully pairs current students with courses that best fit their talents, and program of study for upcoming semesters. His most recent work has been to develop and implement a comprehensive system-scale student success strategy, the Momentum Year, that has transformed developmental education and advising at all of the Georgia institutions. In 2016, he was selected as one of Washington Monthly's 16 Most Innovative People in Higher Education, one of the Center for Digital Education's top 30 technologists, transformers, and trailblazers, and was invited to the White House to address recipients of President Obama's First in the World grants as a model of what could be achieved by a higher education system. He was recipient of the 2016 Newell Perry Award for the National Federation of the Blind for his leadership of a systemic approach to the accessibility of educational content. In 2017, he began the year by being named one of 5 higher education leaders to watch in 2017 and beyond by Education and was named as a Complete College American Fellow. Tristan's work continues in using a data-informed approach to implement a wide variety of system-scale initiatives surrounding college completion, stretching from education redesign in a variety of disciplines to the role of predictive analytics and data mining, cognitive psychology, and behavioral economics in higher education. As I mentioned, you're in for a real treat, and it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Tristan Denley.
Brandon, thanks so much. Thanks so much for that, the introduction, and thanks so much for the chance to share the great work in Georgia. Yeah, so what I wanted to do was really take you on a journey through the work over the last few years in the state of Georgia, fully implementing the Corequisite model. I want to talk a little bit about kind of how we went about that work, why we went about that work, talk about where it is that work has really led over the last few years, and then right at the end, really share some of the findings that we've had, not only about how to implement Corequisite, but also about really how to optimize those implementations. So first of all, a little bit about the University System of Georgia. No reason why everybody should know everything about our system. So the University System of Georgia is the state university and college system, state public university and college system in the state of Georgia. There's 26 universities and colleges all told, and those Those range literally from completely open access state colleges all the way across to our highly selective sort of national elite institutions, University of Georgia and Georgia Tech, and everything in between. HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, rural institutions, big, small. We really have the full spectrum of institutions. And what I'm going to be talking about today has involved all of them, not just a couple of them, but all of them. Altogether, we serve about 350,000 students across those 26 institutions. So let's talk about Corequisite education in Georgia. So the way the story began really is going all the way back to 2013. 2013, the Georgia schools were using a relatively traditional approach to developmental education. And you can see the blue bars that I'm showing here are the success using that traditional approach, intermediate algebra, and that sort of sequence of dev ed that was involved. In 2013, we had about 7,000 students who were involved in that, taking intermediate math classes. What I'm showing here, and I'm showing it disaggregated out by preparation, what I'm using today is ACT math subscores. And what I'm showing you is not the success in each of those developmental classes, each individual one. What I'm showing to you is over a full academic year, what proportion of Georgia's students who began in developmental education actually completed the credit-bearing math class that they needed to satisfy their general education requirement, because that turns out to be the crucial piece. It turns out in our system anyway, that students who are able to complete the credit-bearing math class and the credit-bearing English class that they need to satisfy their general education requirement, those students who are able to do that in their first academic year are more than 10 times more likely to graduate from our system with a credential of value than students who are not. And so it turns out to be extraordinarily crucial that we enable as many students as possible to be able to do that. Now you can see when we began this work, about 1 in 5 of the students who began in developmental education were actually successfully completing that critical math class in their first academic year. And I'll show you what it was like in English in just a second, but it really wasn't so much better. Around 2015, the Georgia system began to experiment with different kinds of structures to developmental education. And one of those was what was called the foundations approach. And the foundations approach was really to take that prerequisite remediation and to compress it into a single semester. So it's still the case that students had to do something before they were allowed to go into the credit-bearing math class in this case, or in a moment I'll show you what it is for a credit-bearing writing class. But either way, they had to complete that prequel before they were allowed to, having successfully completed that credit-bearing math class or English class, then they were allowed to enroll into the credit-bearing class, again, the class that they need to satisfy to complete their general education requirements. And again, you can see there was a slight improvement by using that different structure, improvement from 20% up to almost 30%, but still 2/3, a little bit more than 2/3 of the students who began in this case, developmental mathematics, were unsuccessful in their first academic year in being able to complete that crucial math class. And you can see that there is some variation across the preparation spectrums. That those students who come in better prepared, sure enough, had a little bit better chance. But even if they had an ACT score, math ACT score of 20, it was still a 50-50 chance. You might be asking yourself kind of what is the driver behind that? And so if you've not seen kind of why that is, then I think I can kind of show you in this way. The students who began in foundations, they sure enough enrolled in the foundations math class, that 1 semester remediation. And actually the pass rate in that foundations math class was actually quite reasonable. That actually, and in this case, all through the talk, from me, I'm going to talk about pass rates, meaning earning an A, a B, or a C. Clearly at different institutions, sometimes a D is a grade that students are able to use as a passing grade or function as a passing grade. But for consistency today, I'm always going to be talking at earning an A, a B, or a C as a grade. So those students, almost 75% of them earned that passing grade. and then were able to go on and take the subsequent credit-bearing class. And the thing is, not all of them did. That actually, in reality, and we see this nationwide, that students often do not go on and take the next class. Sometimes they dropped out along the way. Sometimes they don't get advised well. Sometimes there's not capacity. All kinds of reasons why it is that students don't go on, but the reality is that they don't, and we need them to. And so, again, of the students then who had passed that foundations math class successfully, only about 70% of them actually went on in the next semester to enroll in that college math class. In fact, went on ever. And when they got there, again, the passing rate in the collegiate class was not actually that striking. That actually about 60% of those students who had been there, navigated their way all through that journey, when they got to that, enrolled in that college math class, as I say, about 60% of them earned an A, B, or a C, which in and of itself, again, is not crazily striking. We certainly would like it to be higher, but it's not unusual across university and college campuses. It's when you chain all those things together, that's when you get the 29%. And that really sort of shows why it is that one of the driving reasons why the prerequisite model really has not worked well as a model for developmental education, because so many students along the way get kind of they just sort of peter out as they move along through this journey. So let's then compare with the Corequisite model, because at the same time as Georgia institutions were experimenting with the foundations model, they were also starting to use the Corequisite model. And again, I'm going to show you. So this is, again, over those years between 2015 and 2017. And again, you can see this is about 10,000 students that I'm showing you, the success rates of those 10,000 students. And again, you can see a very dramatic change, that it is no longer the case that the majority of students were being unsuccessful in that first academic year. In fact, exactly the opposite. Now, the majority were being successful, more than doubling in the success rates for students in that critical credit-bearing math class. In this case, one of three math classes: a quantitative reasoning class, a math modeling class, or a college algebra class. All three were on offer for those students to take. So then the last piece, and you can imagine that using this data, we really were able to work with all of our campuses, work with the math departments, and in a second I'll show you the English results, the English departments across all of our campuses, to see that, look, there simply is not a student who is not being better served, being much more likely to, in this case, pass their math class. And so we were able to persuade all of our institutions to fully implement the Corequisite model in the fall of 2018. And these are the results of that. This is, again, all of our students. And again, I do need to sort of hammer this home. This is, sometimes people talk about the power of a random control trial. And sure enough, a random control trial is a very powerful tool. But a random control trial is a piece of methodology when you can't have census level data, when you can't have population level data. This is population level data. This is all, almost 20,000 students over the 2 full academic years that we have fully implementing the Corequisite model. And you can see that all across the preparation spectrum, even students all the way down to who come in with ACT math scores that are down below 14, are still passing that credit-bearing math class at night and day differences from anything that they did before. Two or three times more likely to be successful than they ever were with any of the other methodologies that we have. I'm not going to show you today disaggregations by race or gender or age or income, but suffice to say, if I show you them, they look exactly like this. That one of the striking features of the way in which this implementation has been put in place is that we have literally eliminated any kind of disparity of outcome based on race or gender or income or age. And that is in itself a very powerful reason to be looking in this direction. I've shown you math results. Let me show you English results. So this, again, is as I said, we fully scaled the Corequisite model in both math and in English. So these are the success rates of students in the Georgia system across all 26 schools being successful in their in English Composition 1, their freshman writing class, the writing class that they need to satisfy their general education requirement in freshman writing. And again, you can see the baseline was not as striking as with math, that students were passing their credit-bearing English class using the foundations or traditional approach at roughly a 40-something percent, but using the Corequisite model, and you can see literally another 50% increase in that success. And I've hopefully already persuaded you how crucial that is. Again, it is well worth pointing out that those success rates are not happening only for the best prepared of students, only for the students towards the right-hand end of the preparation spectrum, but instead look all the way across the preparation spectrum. At every preparation level, students are passing their credit-bearing math class at roughly a 70% rate. And it is interesting to think about. If I were to now ask what those success rates, how those success rates correlated then with that preparation level, it's a flat line. It's really a very striking thing indeed. Now, you may be asking, and I hope you are, so for instance, those math classes. There's 3 different math classes that I mentioned. Do the success rates in those math classes vary by these students, and how does that play out with these different kinds of developmental model? And so these are the success rates in the 3 credit-bearing math classes that, at least up until recently, have been part of our math pathways journey. We have quantitative reasoning, we have math modeling, we have college algebra, and the green bars are the success rates of students who took the foundations class, successfully completed that, and enrolled in that one of those 3 math classes. It's the success rates of those students when they get there. The red bars are the Corequisite students, those students who were directly enrolled into the credit-bearing math class that they needed for their degree, quantitative reasoning, math modeling, or college algebra, and then had the Corequisite support that went along with the Corequisite model, and just-in-time kind of remediation along the way. And I think this is really striking, because what you can see is how in the past we had really persuaded ourselves that a traditional approach to remediation, provided the basic tools that students needed to then go into the credit-bearing class and be successful. And what you can see is that actually it wasn't anywhere near as successful as we expected. It ought to be the case, if our thinking were right, that the green bars should be taller than the red bars. That the students who had been, if you like, sort of, pre-primed to now be successful when they went into their credit-bearing math class should have the advantage of that, and so should be outperforming those students who are taking the Corequisite approach and don't have the benefit of that. But instead, it's the other way around, that actually just-in-time remediation outperforms the pre-remediation every day of the week. And of course, what I haven't shown you is the true picture of this, because in a way, what I'm showing you is deceptive, because what I'm showing you there is the success rates for those foundation students when they actually successfully worked their way through the foundations course and then finally enrolled in their credit-bearing math class. By that time, many of those students have been already weeded out. And so to really show you the true picture, what I need to do is to take that into account. And this is then the true picture. This is the picture that compares the approach using the foundations approach, that more traditional approach, with the Corequisite approach when students are directly enrolled into the math class that they need with the surrounding support. And you can see how striking those improvements in success are. Again, very similar kinds of pictures if we disaggregate by race, gender, and age, and income. And I encourage you to do so, because it is extraordinarily important as we do this work to make sure that as we create these new models, that they really do well serve all of our student populations, not only just some. Again, you should be asking, well, what about next? What happens next? These students who took, for instance, English 1101, our freshman writing class, they have to go on to take English 1102. Do they do that? And so, again, just to show you the flavor of that, I'm going to show you what that looks like for English 1101. In the past, about 50% of the students who enrolled in English 1101, having navigated their way through the foundations journey, about half of them actually went on to take English 1102. Using the Corequisite approach, it's significantly more, 65%, at least right now, rather than that 52. And again, you should be saying, well, when they get there, so how do they do? What's the pass rate like? Is it really just the case that we're just kind of kicking the can down the road? These students do fine in English 1101 until they get to English 1102, and then they don't do so well? Or is it really the case that the Corequisite approach, as well as helping many more students be successful in English 1101, that success is actually also translating into success in English 1102? And what I'm happy to tell you is that's the right picture, that actually when those students, having completed English 1101, using the Corequisite approach, they are just as successful in English 1102 as any of their colleagues who had been prepared using any of the other approaches. And again, I'm showing you just pass rates here, but I can show you the full grade distribution. You can see the full grade distribution looks basically identical to what we had been used to using the foundations approach. Again, just to hammer it home, using the Corequisite approach, there's twice as many students, just because it's twice as effective. So maybe I'll pause there a little bit just to see if there are questions about, in general, the general results around Corequisite. And then what I want to do is to go on and talk about some more recent work that's really tried to see what are ways in which we can really optimize the Corequisite approach to produce even better results. So Brandon, I don't know if there's things in the chat.
Tristan, we have a couple questions. So one is just a clarification. If the Corequisites run for the full semester together with the college level course, just trying to distinguish how that is different from preloading through a compressed course. So if you could just maybe clarify that piece of it.
I can, yeah. The way that these courses work is that's right. So these students are enrolled in exactly the same credit-bearing class as their non-Corequisite colleagues, but are accompanied by a semester-long supplementary instructional experience that they are required to attend. That's exactly right. So it lasts the full semester, and it is a in parallel remediation rather than a front-loaded approach.
Great, thank you. One other question, and I don't know if you have this data, is if there's evidence of how Corequisites lead to greater retention and earning of credentials.
I do, and actually I don't have that in my slide deck today, but in just a second I'm going to show you that is certainly as part and parcel of the student success initiatives that we have in Georgia. We've seen very striking increases in graduation rate, but retention rates also increase. So we've seen about a 10 percentage point increase in full to full retention for students since we've started utilizing the Corequisite approach over the previous foundations and more traditional approach. So yeah, it's certainly helping all around. Also the case, significant increase in just the credits that those students earn, not only in their math and English classes, but all told. It's a great question.
Awesome. Two other questions that came in. I'm just going to mention them, but I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about them in your next part of the presentation, which is if you can talk about how the classes are taught. If, for example, English class instructors are the same as the learning support classes, and if USG system was using a standardized curriculum for the 3 math pathways. I think you may be talking about that as you move forward.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. So maybe I'll take that cue and move on there. So the first thing I want to talk about is work around academic mindset, because what we've seen is, although we've increased the success rates quite dramatically, it is still the case that about a third of the students are still being unsuccessful. What's important to know is that those students don't look like there's no particular demographics, no particular subgroup that describes those students. So they look just like every other student. they are just as prepared as other students. Their racial makeup is just the same as other students. The only thing about them, it appears that their approach to college is a little different, just the way in which they think about their academic mindset. And so what we've been doing is to really dig in deep to understand how students understand themselves as learners, how they interact with the learning environment around them. And to get at that, we've been giving a large-scale academic mindset survey to all of our incoming freshman class, and then dovetailing that information then with the grades that students earn in the classes. Today, what I'm going to do is just to zoom in on perceived purpose of coursework, just because I think those results are so striking, although we have similar kinds of results all across that list of academic mindset. We asked our students, and I'm going to, again, zoom in on Corequisite students today. We asked them a sequence of questions. Did they think the math class that they were taking would be useful in their career one day, or not? Did they think that maybe not in their career, but sometime in their future, or did they just not even think math is really useful at all? What I'm showing you here is the grades that students got in the Corequisite math class that they were taking, broken down by that attitude, that way in which they think about math. This is the grade distribution for students who don't think math is useful. And this is the grade distribution for students who think it's useful, just probably not in their future. This is the grade distribution for people who think that it really won't be useful in their career, but maybe it'll be useful one day for something else. And then finally, these blue bars is the grade distribution for students who really think the math is they're taking will actually be useful in their future career, in what it is that they will go do. And so this is for Corequisite students, and you can see as I sort of go through this grade distribution, and these differences really are significant at the 99% confidence level, that as we move through that sort of steadily decreasing level of skepticism about the utility of mathematics, that not only are the students being more successful, they're actually earning better grades. They're actually learning the material more and mastering the material at a deeper and more meaningful level. And that's exactly what we want. I can show you exactly similar slides for English writing. So simply asking this exactly analogous questions about the utility of the writing class that they're taking. So when you think about then the whole math pathways movement, what it is that I've just shown you shows how utterly crucial it is that students really do take the right math class in their freshman year, not just simply any math class that they're thrown at them, not just taking college algebra because there's college in the name, but instead taking college algebra because it truly does lead on to them being as part of a calculus-based discipline, taking statistics if it is the case that they are in a statistically based discipline. And it's that data that I just showed you that led our system to add a brand new statistics pathway to join the other 3 math classes that I've already mentioned. So it's really pointing out the fact that this academic mindset aspect, it is utterly crucial, another piece of trying to improve the outcomes of our students. And it's part and parcel for us of a much broader selection of work. As Brandon mentioned, we've introduced what we call the momentum year, which is a deliberate system-wide approach to trying to improve student success by improving the first year. And that's already been showing some fruit. We began that work, as I say, back in 2018. It is really the case that to talk about anything other than our 4-year graduation rate moving based on that work really is a little disingenuous. But our 4-year graduation rate has moved already by 14%, and for African American students by almost double that. And for the first time, our system-wide full-to-full retention has gone above 80%. So we're already really seeing the benefits of this work, benefits of our Corequisite work embedded as part of this broader selection of student success strategies. Yeah, so to close out, I do want to talk about the implementation model, because it really is the case that that's a really important piece of this work. Because of the scale of it, what I've shown you already is really data points over the last 2 years of close to 25,000 students. We really are in a position to be able to, for the first time, to be able to compare implementation models, right? So there's really, in our system anyway, there were 12 basic implementation models that institutions may have adopted. They had the choice as to whether or not to, the way in which the class was constructed. Is it only Corequisite students in the credit-bearing math class or English class, or were they together with other students who were not Corequisite, maybe a 50-50 mix? The instructor, was it the same instructor for the Corequisite part of the class as for the credit-bearing class, or were they different instructors? And then lastly, how many credit hours, how many credit contact hours was the Corequisite experience? Was it just 1 or 2 or 3? And so you can see altogether there are sort of 12 possibilities for that combination of strategies. And what I'm going to do is to show you this very new data that compares those 12 combinations. These charts are maybe a little busy, but maybe the best that I could do, at least right now, to try to do that. What I'm going to lead you through is, so the horizontal axis of what I'm going to show you is for each of those combinations of strategies, how much better or worse were the outcomes for the students who experienced that combination of strategy than just all of the strategies in general, the average outcome across the whole system. So that's the x-axis of this. Then if you think about it, and then if you think about it, those different sort of strategy populations, they may contain students who have very different kinds of distributions of preparation, just depending on which schools use which strategy. And so to control for that, the y-axis is comparing the success rates of those students to what we would expect if we control for that different distribution of preparation, making sure that way we want to recognize which are the strategies which really do produce the best results, not just simply happen to have the best prepared students who consequently perhaps do a little better than their less well-prepared colleagues. And then lastly, the size of the bubble, you guessed it, is just n, which typically on these diagrams is in the order of 1,000 or so. So they really are significant bodies of part of the student body. All right, so let me kind of lead you through this, and I'm going to start with English. So the first thing to notice is these 3 bubbles that are all strategies that use the same faculty members. So these are strategies that use at least 2 credit hours, but they use the same faculty member. Just maybe the yellow is using a mixed class, and the blue we're using only Corequisite in the class itself. And you can see that all 3 of them are above the y-axis. In other words, all 3 of them produce results that are better than we might have expected based on the preparation distribution of those students. And in fact, you can see up there in the top right-hand corner is the model where actually that's the model where we have the same faculty member, only Corequisite students in the class, and 2 credit hours of support, which produces among the best kinds of results that we have. Again, recognizing how important it is not only to look at the x-axis, in other words, how much above the average, but controlling for preparation as well. You can see that there is also that large green bubble right there, which is one of the implementations that uses only 1 credit hour of Corequisite. This is actually also an implementation that uses 1 hour of Corequisite, uses only Corequisite students in the credit-bearing class, and then, as I say, and then also uses the same faculty member. So we believe it to be the case, and you can see why using the same faculty member is a really advantageous strategy. And in contrast, you can see that other than that green bubble to the right, where we know that one is actually utilizing a methodology using the same faculty member, down here on the left, you can see using 1 credit hour consistently produces results that are, first of all, just results that are less than the average for all strategies, but more than that, produces results that are less than might be expected based on the preparation distribution of the students they're serving. Again, this seems to suggest that 1 credit hour simply is insufficient to be able to produce the kinds of outcomes that we would like to. So to summarize all of that for English, and again, these results that I'm saying to you are statistically significant at the 99% confidence level, that students are least benefited by only having 1 hour of Corequisite and using a different faculty member for the two instructional pieces, but are most benefited by having 2 hours. 2 hours appears to be the sweet spot for English, and using the same faculty member for the 2 pieces of instruction. Again, to keep going with math, there's lots of bubbles on this chart, but again, I want to show you kind of what that picture looks like. Again, for mathematics, 1 credit hour is simply not enough. You can see that all of the strategies, that combinations of strategies that use only 1 hour of Corequisite support, they all produce results that are less advantageous for students than we should expect them to be. On the other hand, on the other side of this, there we go. On the other side of this, combinations of strategies that use the same faculty member or different can be advantageous, but to really understand that well, we really wanted to go inside and to further disaggregate by race, because it turned out to be the case that we saw a different picture when we did that. What I'm showing you here is that same disaggregation for Black and Hispanic students. When I did the analysis, actually separate out for Black students and separately do the analysis for Hispanic students. It turns out that it looks just like this for both populations of students, which is the reason why I'm only showing you one chart today. What that seems to suggest for us is that for Black and Hispanic students specifically, those students are most benefited by using strategies that use the same faculty member for each of the 2 pieces. And so again, to summarize for mathematics, students are least benefited by only using a single hour of Corequisite. It appears that using more hours of Corequisite produces substantially better results, no matter what the other parts of the implementation are. But more than that, using at least 2 hours in Corequisite benefits students, but using the same faculty member also appears to most benefit students, and that's especially true for Black students and for Hispanic Latino students. So with that, let me see if there are other questions in the chat. I know that I've thrown a lot at you this afternoon. Many of you might be interested in a lot of the kind of the machinery and details behind what I've said. If you are, then going to this web link, completecollegegeorgia.org, Success Library. There you will find the technical briefs that really kind of get into the down and dirty weeds of what it is that I've shown you this afternoon. But with that, happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks.
Thank you, Tristan. Wonderful presentation, and this really answers a lot of questions we get of the magical combination, same instructor, different instructor, number of credits, etc.
Yeah.
We have several questions in the chat that are all pointing to the same thing. If you can talk about what a credit hour means in Georgia, because credit hours and contact hours are not always the same, and maybe if you can talk about how often does a typical Corequisite course meet during the week?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I guess I should have been more careful in what I said. So that when I'm talking about the number of hours of Corequisite instruction, I'm really talking about contact hours, not credit hours. As you're right, really credit hours is more about how much tuition the students pay, not how many hours they are expected to be in a room with an instructor. So I'm talking about contact hours, not credit hours. Hopefully that clarifies.
And so typically, just in the minute we have left, how often are Corequisite courses meeting?
Yeah, so if it is a 1 hour Corequisite, then those students are meeting once a week, and they're meeting for a single hour. If it's 2 hours, then typically they would meet twice a week, and for each of those sessions, an hour each. And then if it's 3, then they're meeting 3 times a week, and they're meeting for an hour each time.
Super, thank you very much. There was also a question if we could put the link, if you can go back a slide, I just put it in the chat as well for everyone to be able to see that. One last question. We have just about 1 minute if you can do a quick answer,
Yeah.
which is, how does this affect the faculty workload? Does it count as another class that they teach?
Yeah, so it does vary by campus as to exactly how that workload is treated. But typically speaking, yeah. So depending on how it is that that contact hours and credit hours are understood, that's going to work into the way in which it's interpreted as faculty workload. We don't have a system approach to that.
Perfect. Thank you very much
Yeah, sure.
for not only answering that question, but for the entire presentation. As I spoke about at the beginning, this is just a real treat for all of the Complete College America Alliance members, as well as the general public who were invited to this amazing webinar on Corequisite Support. Just a reminder, Complete College America is about to launch our newest signature publication on Corequisite Support. That's going to be coming out just in the next couple of weeks, so you'll want to be on the lookout for that. Complete College America really changed the national conversation. And what we're saying in this webinar shows is what was once an idea has now been proven, and now we have to go to scale. So if you've not already done so, please go to completecollege.org, create a profile there, and so you can keep up to date with the latest and the greatest. Again, we want to give a huge thank you to Dr. Tristan Denley for sharing this information. We do want to stay connected with you, so we have our next CCA live webinar that's going to be on multiple measures coming up on April 8th. Same time with leaders in the field. Thank you everyone for attending. After the conclusion of today's webinar, we will be sending out a follow-up with evaluation as well as a link if you would like to watch this webinar again or be able to share it with colleagues. So thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, Tristan, for a wonderful presentation.
Yeah, thanks.